You may be seated. We gather this morning to celebrate our existence as a community, each one of us together. But it is not just us. We are a community of great diversity, of many races, various religious and philosophical persuasions, liberal, moderate, conservative, gay and straight, Cubs fans and Cardinal fans. Our community is broad. But it is not just us. This moment is just one of a long line of such moments, 175 to this point. And it is reasonable to assume that there will be centuries more of such moments to come. We stand in a long line of students, and faculty, and staff who have already been here and are yet to be. But it is not just us. Our community is wide and it is deep. And so in this moment of the Blackburn community, let us celebrate with our joy and our gratitude all that has been, is now, and will be.
I want to begin by saying welcome to members of our board who have been able to join us here today, members of our faculty, staff, students, and visitors, and friends of the college. I'll begin my comments by recognizing a group of people in attendance who've contributed in extraordinary ways to maintaining and giving life to our commitments as part of the Student Managed Work Program. I'm talking about work managers from past years who are seated here with Roger Fenton, at least I think Roger is here, our Associate Dean for Work. Contrary to rumors to this effect, Roger has not been here since Dr. Hudson created the work program. That has certainly been one of the most steadfast guides, protectors, and interpreters of the work program in Blackburn's history. Roger, will you please stand, and may I ask all of the work managers, past and present, to also stand. I ask everybody to give them a hand for their special role in making Blackburn a place where education works. My primary order of business this morning is to introduce our speaker, Dr. George Koo, Chancellor's Professor Emeritus at Indiana University. His longtime research interests have centered on assessing student and institutional performance to enhance student success and to improve the quality of undergraduate experience. He continues to actively engage in research and service as an adjunct professor at the University of Illinois and directs the National Institute for Learning Outcomes Assessment, known as NILOA, co-located at the University of Illinois and Indiana University. He's also a senior advisor to the Strategic National Arts Alumni Project, of which he was the founding director. In addition, he founded the National Survey of Student Engagement and related surveys for law students, beginning college students, and faculty, along with the it's called NSSE, Institute for Effective Educational Practice. He has over 350 publications and several hundred presentations on topics related to institutional improvement, college student engagement, assessment strategies, and campus cultures. His most recent books include High-Impact Practices, produced as part of the Association of American Colleges and Universities Liberal Education in America's Promise Initiative, Student Success in College, Creating Conditions That Matter, and Piecing Together the Student Success Puzzle, Research, Propositions, and Recommendations. In addition, he's been consultant to more than 350 institutions of higher education and educational agencies in the United States and internationally. His contributions have been recognized with awards from the American College Personnel Association, the American Educational Research Association, the Association for Institutional Research, the Association for the Study of Higher Education, the Council for Adult and Experiential Learning, the Council of Independent Colleges, the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, and the National Center on Public Policy and Higher Education. And I thought I was doing well just being a member of most of those organizations. He's received the Distinguished Alumni Award from the University of Iowa, the Distinguished Alumni Award and Educational Leadership Award for Teaching from St. Cloud State University, several Teaching Excellence Recognition Awards from Indiana University, the Dean's Award for Outstanding Contributions by a faculty member to the quality of undergraduate life at Indiana University, and the prestigious Tracy Sonneborn Award from Indiana University for a distinguished record of scholarship and teaching. He's a past president of the Association for the Study of Higher Education, has been granted 7 honorary degrees, and serves on the Board of Regents at Luther College in Iowa and the National Leadership Council for the Association of American Colleges and Universities, Liberal Education, and American Promise Initiative. His energy, intelligence, scholarly productivity, and many contributions to the improvement of undergraduate education are unsurpassed. He truly is one of the giants in the study of higher education, and it is my sincere and distinct honor to present to you Dr. George Koo.
I'm really sorry you had to sit through that. And I made up most of that stuff. And it's like a eulogy. It's sad, truth. I really appreciate that over-the-top introduction, and I am honored to be here to help you celebrate 175 years, but also the centennial of the work program at Blackburn, which makes you just by its nature. It's very distinct. This is my first time here. And by the way, you probably know this, but you don't just kind of find Carlinville. You have to be looking for it. But I know a little bit about work colleges. I've been to Berea. Some of you know Berea. I've had the pleasure of visiting Berea twice. And I stayed both times I stayed at the Boone County Tavern. How many of you have been to Berea? How many of you stayed at the Boone County Tavern? How many of you were disappointed to find that the libation of your choice was not available? Boone County, where Berea is located, is a dry county. So the Boone County Tavern is a misnomer. But what is really important about my visit to Berea, in addition to learning about the work program intellectually, is when I left late afternoon student focus group. We were doing a research project there. I drove around the back, parked my car, and went in to register for my hotel room, and the person at the registration desk was a student who was in my focus group that afternoon, which put a whole new slant on work. I'm going to talk a little bit about work and college a little bit later. You know more about it than I do, frankly. But I want to set this up with a couple of ideas that I think are centrally connected to what Blackburn is about and further underscore the value of work during college. The first is, now just stick with me here, the first is this kind of slippery social science phrase, something I call goal realization. Goal realization. Just don't fall asleep yet. This is the ability of a student to see how their academic work actually makes a difference in their real life, where they can begin to see how what they are studying has value, application, meaning to what they do outside the classroom, and perhaps even as they begin a glimpse of what their future might be. Now this idea, seeing the connections, sounds like it's pretty straightforward and pretty easy to do, but it is very difficult for traditional age, first and second year students, to do so. They come with what, in my business, developmental psychologists call, they arrive in college at a state of dualism. They are dualistic. By dualistic, I mean this overwhelming propensity to see the world in very stark black or white terms. Things are true or they're not true. There's a single best right answer to whatever the question is that's posed by a faculty member or others. They can't really manage complexity very well in the world. They want concrete illustrations, not abstract ideas, which is what I'm pounding you with from the podium here. They want the answer. And those of us who are in the classroom, you see this in the quizzical looks and questions you get from students when you ask them to come up with 2 or 3 or more explanations for some phenomenon, like the proximal causes of the Civil War, for example. There must be one answer, and I'm paying for you to tell me what it is. Another feature of this is the ability of a student to, in their own words, tell you why they're here at Blackburn. Too often, especially in the first and second year, students will come up with some other language, something they've heard, something that someone has told them. My parents said I ought to go to college, or I didn't have any other really good options. And that's not a very persuasive reason for sticking around. So just accept for a moment that this idea that a student can see some value in their own terms, some practical application for the things they are reading about and studying to their lives outside the classroom. Just imagine that that is a very important reason, feature, state of mind for students sticking around and finishing what they start here. Second thing I want to talk about is something we've come to call, the provost, Jeff mentioned this in his introduction. You probably missed it because it was way too long. Something that we have come to label high impact practices. High impact practices. I'm going to occasionally kind of slip into the jargon and call them HIPs. They've been around a long time, but it's only really in the last few years that people like me who have nothing better to do, but other scholars, practitioners, policymakers even, have come to see their value. That is, when students participate in one of these, they are much more likely to benefit in the desired ways. They're more satisfied with college, they're more likely to stay and graduate. They've been around a long time, but it's not only been since these last 5 years, as Jeff mentioned, I published this little monograph. You may not know the little monograph or the association AC, that's really not important, but you know what these are from your own experience. Whether you've done them, you know of people who've done them. They include these, the HIPS list, if you will, includes things like doing research with a faculty member, having studied abroad, having had an internship. I'm distinguishing that now from work for the moment, but hang on, I'll make a connection here a little bit. Other field placements like student teaching perhaps, or a culminating, what we would call a culminating experience that kind of ties together the college experience. It might be a senior capstone seminar, it might be a project, thesis, whatever it might be. To justify the high impact label, this is because if a student has done just one of these things, better to have done it in the first or second year, but some of these are better placed later, of course, like study abroad and such. But having done just one of these, a student is, on average, much more likely to graduate. They're much more likely to exhibit the kinds of outcomes that we are after. A kicker on this is, it doesn't make any difference who you are. That is, these positive effects show up, gender, socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, age, notwithstanding. Participating in these things has this kind of uniform set of positive effects no matter who you are. In fact, there's some evidence to suggest that if you come from a historically underrepresented background, low income, so-called racial minority in the institutional context, you might benefit even more. So it's the trifecta, really. Those of you resources. You got these great things going together. Students are more engaged. They're more likely to graduate. They're more likely to learn at high levels. Why? Why does participating in a learning community or a writing-intensive course or study abroad, why such positive effects? In part because they have certain features in common. And now here's where you've got to start making connections, because I'm going to go through a list of 6 or 7 of these. And I want you to be thinking about the work program here and the extent to which the work program does or could match up with the characteristics, the features that make a HIP so powerful. Faculty and staff set performance expectations at appropriately high levels for the individual student. Students spend a significant amount of time and effort over an extended period of time in something that really matters to them and the campus. Students frequently interact with people they would just as soon avoid. They don't have any choice but to be in the company of peers who come from different backgrounds, may have different views, and so on and so forth. But these interactions are around substantive matters. They're just not made up. There's things we got to do together, right? So students are interacting in meaningful ways with people from these different backgrounds. Students get timely and hopefully constructive feedback in real time about the quality of their performance. We're not just left to our own devices, right? People are watching and they're telling us how well we are doing. Very important, students are required in some way to think about their thinking, which is an unnatural human act, actually. That is, we are going to have conversations about what you are thinking and the meaning that you are making of these experiences. And equally important, we're going to ask you how this thing, this whatever it is relating to what you're studying and vice versa. The application is real, right? It's a real world application. This isn't something made up in a lab or a studio. And finally, we are going to ask, you will be required to demonstrate how well you perform. The performance is public. These are effective educational practices that can show up in any classroom or lab or studio. But when they come together in a HIP, it's particularly powerful. There are other kinds of high-impact practices here on this campus and on other campuses. I mean, I think of the touring theatrical and musical ensembles that spend enormous amounts of time, right, practicing and getting feedback and then out performing publicly about how well they work. Intercollegiate athletics, I think, can be, not always, but can be one of the debate teams. One of the more common high-impact practices that we haven't a lot of data on yet, but I hear it all the time. I've had the good fortune to interact with a lot of different regional and national media, newspaper reporters, and so forth and so on. And almost every instance when I've talked with them, they tell me what the most singularly powerful, lasting experience they had when they were in college. You know what it is? When they were in college, what made the greatest impact for them? It was writing for the student newspaper. The Stanford Cardinal, the Harvard Crimson, whatever the paper was, right? I mean, why? Well, they probably spent more time. Actually, I did this, by the way, at Luther. I don't know if I should have done this publicly. I was the Headless Norseman. 1966, wrote that column at Luther College, and what that meant was I was anonymous. And in those days, you could libel or slander anybody. But like the newspaper reporters I spoke with, I spent well, let's just go back and put it in an objective place. You know, these are people who are spending more time preparing an article than perhaps for most of their other class assignments, right? Gathering information, writing the story. If you've done it, you get prompt, if not always affirming feedback about the quality of your writing. And then it becomes public. And there's another opportunity to get feedback about your competence. So all in all, that kind of package makes it, in my mind, a high impact experience. So we get this when we provide structured opportunities for students to spend significant amount of time on a substantive, important, meaningful task to the community as well as hopefully to themselves. And they begin to see firsthand the practical value of what they're learning. And these are the kinds of experiences that help students get to that state of goal realization. Some personally meaningful reason for my being here now, right? Now, it occurred to me, it takes me a while, but it occurred to me, you've known this for 100 years apparently, but it occurred to me that the second most common activity among college students today in this country is student employment. Of course, it's true here for all resident students and most others who come through this place, but it is also the case that most students at almost every college or university in the country works at some point in their studies. I mean, it's a big difference, of course, is that work here is espoused anyway to be an integral part of the undergraduate experience. That's not so at SLU or Illinois Wesleyan or Southern Illinois, but what if it was? What if the features of high-impact practices were infused more intentionally and systematically into the work here and elsewhere? Actually, well, you're not going to do this, but you could go to the University of Iowa website, and if you typed in all caps GROW, G-R-O-W, guided reflection on work, you will see that the University of Iowa has adopted this throughout their Division of Student Affairs and now have almost 2,000 students going through this systematic reflection and application exercise because they have regular, structured conversations with their work supervisors. And they've turned this into a pretty simple kind of what we would call, I don't know, focus group conversation. You know, 4 questions that they ask students periodically to talk about in the company of small groups of students. How is this job fitting in with your academics? Straightforward question. How is what you're learning here helping you in your classes? What are you learning in class that you can apply on the job? And finally, give me a couple of examples of the things you are learning here at work that you think you're going to use later in your chosen profession. Now, the first time students are presented with these questions, you get almost nothing back. Maybe some of you have had this experience. I have it always with my own kids who are old enough to you get almost nothing back, in part because students have never been asked to think about their world, their work, their experience in this way. This is a learned pattern of conversation, one that becomes very, very important. Now, of course, some employment settings are more amenable to this. I mean, if you've got an art major with graphic design aspirations and they're working on the admissions marketing team, I mean, there might be more or less direct connection. Others are more challenging to come by. But it is a non-trivial challenge to get students to begin to think and talk in this way. And you've got kind of a natural setting because you've got upper division people who are work managers who hopefully themselves have got to this point of reflection and application. Point of this is that these are the kinds of behaviors and conversations that we see directly related to students who survive and thrive in the college experience. But but equally important, these are kind of the steps toward what we call in my business becoming a reflective practitioner, that is being able to think about your own thinking in real time so that you can make adjustments on the fly in terms of the circumstances you find yourself. And of course, you've known that work here helps people for the world of work. People who come through here routinely will say they were better prepared than the people that they are working with to manage the complexities and challenges of the workplace. And it is even more so today than ever before, as we sit with employers about what they want to know about the recent college graduates that they are interviewing. They no longer are satisfied. They don't want to hear about the courses you've taken. I mean no offense to my faculty colleagues. We couldn't get students to the stage, the position we want them without having the academic structure and requirements in place. That's not my point. What my point is, employers are really no longer interested in the courses you take. They're not even terribly interested in what you majored in. And again, coming back to people up here who they want to know how what you have learned and what you can do as a result can make a difference for their organization. They want it in students' own language, not recorded on a transcript someplace. This capacity for a Blackburn graduate to explain to an employer how they can add value really is the key to success after college. That and, of course, having the skills and competencies to be a lifelong learner. So the issue for me, for you, my presence here, how can we be sure that the work program at Blackburn looks and has the impact of a high-impact experience? Two quick implications, and then I'll sit down and we'll get on with this, right? Employment supervisors, the work managers. These are some of Blackburn's best, right? They have to be well prepared through what we would call staff development activities to first be sure they are well on their way toward this kind of personal reflection and integration and synthesis, so that they can then be in a position to help those who are working under their guidance, right? Second, our faculty colleagues need to be further encouraged and supported to design assignments that require students to apply what they are learning on the job to the material they're covering in class and vice versa. We're learning more and more today as we look at the kinds of outcomes we're after that it is about the assignments that faculty design that require students to show that they've mastered not just the material, but they can actually apply it in productive ways. We don't need every course at Blackburn to do this, but we need some every year as a student is moving through so they get this practice and experience. Now, maybe everything I've said, you do here perfectly. No doubt you do it better for most of your students than most other places. But we can be better. We can always be better. I mean, it's the mark of a high-performing institution with this sense of positive restlessness. How do we get better at what we claim? So for how many students can Blackburn confidently declare that work here is not just a job, but it is in fact a high-impact experience? And what might you do to ensure that this is so? So I leave you with this challenge, that is to enhance the quality and impact of the work program so that Blackburn and its graduates can become even more distinctive in the future. Thank you for the privilege of being with you.
And I'm a member of the Alumni Board of Directors, and I'm here to present the Gideon Blackburn Award. The Gideon Blackburn Award is presented by the Alumni Board of Directors once a year to an individual who has rendered valuable service to the college in terms of time, money, influence, and service. This person keeps alive the memory of Dr. Blackburn and the period of time from 1837 to the arrival of Dr. Hudson in 1912. For 2013, we've selected an individual that has demonstrated these qualities from the moment they stepped foot on the campus and voted unanimously that they must be the recipient. It is with very great pride that I present the 2013 Gideon Blackburn Award to our President, Miriam Pride.
Congratulations, President Pride. I think we all feel the same way about the impact that you had here at Blackburn. It has truly been profound. I'm going to go off script just for a minute here and welcome the 30 prospective students that are sitting up in the balcony with us. We appreciate you being here, as well as your parents, and hope and plan for you sitting right down here next year at next year's convocation. Thank you for joining us. Tells us a lot about how important the college choice is to start your day off with us. So, once again, welcome. Today's convocation really marks the end of one celebration and the beginning of another. It is the finale of the 175th anniversary of Blackburn College, but it also is the start of the 100th anniversary celebration of the work program here at Blackburn. In order to make these type of celebrations the best they possibly can be, we form committees to help put on various functions and events. And I want to recognize the outgoing committee, the committee that staged and put on all the different events and functions of the 175th anniversary of your institution. And they are, and please stand and be recognized if you're here, Jennifer Hamilton, Deanna DeMuzio, Dr. Pat Kowal, Mary Beasley, Abby Harden, Ryan Zilm, Dr. Ann Richmond, Joey Rao, and Brett Wrench. Please give these people a show of applause. Special thank you also to Ms. Ashley Williams, if she is here today, for all the hard work in gathering information and pictures from the work program for the book, the commemorative coffee table book that will be produced and be available here very shortly for Blackburn alums and friends to purchase and read. These type of anniversaries also require financial support in terms of corporate partners and sponsors, whatever you might want to call them. And the 100th anniversary of the work program has been able to attract 3 companies, and they are Prairie Farms, based here in Carlinville, Frontier Communications, with a strong base here as well as in Jacksonville, and Sinmar Corporation. This type of support is invaluable, and we appreciate the contribution, but more importantly, the interest and the engagement of these 3 entities. My next order of business is to introduce Cynthia Lamar to you. While Cynthia makes her way up here to the podium, I want to tell you a little bit about her. Cynthia came from Florida to attend Blackburn in approximately 1970. She is a 1973 alumna of Blackburn with a bachelor's degree in sociology. In addition to being a community leader and very involved in her church, she has served her alma mater in a number of different ways over the last 20 years. She is a former member of the Blackburn Alumni Board, and she is a recently retired member of the Blackburn Board of Trustees. However, she is here today as a representative of today's corporate partner, Sinmar Corporation. Sinmar is based here locally, but is an international business in scope, and she and her husband, Ed Lamar, the former science professor here at Blackburn, started this company in the early 70s. But please welcome Cynthia Lamar.
Thank you very much. I'm one of those people that came from a little town in Florida, Dade City. It is not part of Miami-Dade. It's in the middle of the state. I was raised by my great-grandparents, one of which did not have any education and the other had a 5th grade education. But my goal was always to get an education because I knew that that education provided options that my predecessors did not have. And I came to Blackburn in 1969. One of the things that was very appealing to me, because I did not have a dime to go to college, was that it did have a work program. I would have a way to contribute for my education. And because I did that, I came here, I received a marvelous education. But the other part of the education that I received when I came here was the work program. So many of the things that I implement in my business today, I learned working. And I worked in the kitchen for 3 years. It was a marvelous education. I learned how to work with people, how to manage people, how to reach goals that we had set forth for ourselves. I am a beneficiary of everything that Blackburn and the work program offers. And I would like to say to all of the students that are thinking about making Blackburn a place that you will spend your next 4 years, consider it and come. Because you will be a changed person. It changes lives. It makes lives better. I'm a perfect example. So thank you for giving me the honor to sponsor this event today. It's a privilege to do so because Blackburn did change my life. Thank you very much.
Will you please stand? Go in peace. Treat each other with the love and understanding and respect with which you wish to be treated. And in so doing, your life and our community will be blessed.